All right, turn on your mics, guys. Sorry. If I can repeat that again, just want to say that the first appeal, we're not going to do first. We'll do that last. We'll start with appeal number 4, which is 21-1922. Fred and Ashley Ritter. We'll get started if they're here. I don't know if they're here or they're on. Adam, I will ask you while we're trying to find them. Is there, let's bring them up before you bring in any exhibits. Microphone? I'm waiting for them to bring, if we can get Fred and Ashley Ritter, either they're virtual or if they're not, they're coming up right now. I'm looking at the guy in the glass. These are a guy that runs the thing. Yes, hello.
Hi there.
And you're Mr. Ritter, I assume?
Correct. Hey, everybody.
And the person with you?
That's Rob.
I'm Rob from Anthony Sylvan.
He's a frequent flyer.
Yes, he's a frequent flyer. Your face is all too familiar. If you guys can get sworn in. Oh, no,
Okay.
did we swear these in?
Experiment.
Swear him in. Bill?
Oh,
Oh. Bill's used the virtual. Well, it was on. Turn it back on again.
You guys solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right. We have some exhibits.
just a couple. Applications A1, site plan A2, proof of publication is B1, proof of posting is B2, and notice to the neighbors is B3.
Okay, that being. I'm sorry. Oh, you have to identify yourselves so you can be sworn in? Yes, they identify themselves? Identify yourselves for the record.
Sorry, I'm Fred Ritter, the owner of 59 Glen Drive.
Rob McCubbin from Anthony Sylvan Pools.
You have to be in the microphone.
Rob, spell your last name for the record.
Sure, it's McCubbin.
All right. We've all read your plan, but you can explain to the us in the audience what you want to tell us.
Sure. Yes. So we are looking to construct an in-ground concrete pool at 59 Glen Drive. And we are here in front of the board for relief from the zoning ordinance for impervious surface. The property, the zoning ordinance calls for an impervious limit on the property of 13%. Currently, the property sits at 17.8%, made up of all the existing features on the property: the house, the driveway, detached garage, rear patio, and a front walk. So we're looking to do a modest sized project consisting of about 120 linear feet of pool coping, 24 square feet of equipment pad, and 680 square feet of pool patio. Which would increase the total by 824 square feet, or put us at 20.7%. So we would go from the 17.8% that the property is currently at to 20.7%. As part of this plan, we have a stormwater management system designed for all of the impervious over the 13% allowable. So this system is designed For 1 second, for the 2,161 square feet that we would be over the 13% maximum.
Jim, are his numbers correct?
Yes,
So Jim, his numbers for his mitigation, will that bring it back down effective or down to where it originally was at 17.8?
yes,
Okay,
I believe it states it mitigates it down to 13%.
It goes, yes, correct. It
Going
goes
to
back down to
13?
13%. Yeah, yeah.
wow. That's going to be a very vast improvement. Very good. Is the township participating in this by any chance?
No, we are not.
Okay. Anybody got any questions?
Just a quick one here, Jim. Given the location, are there any floodplain concerns here? Or is it relative to the floodplain down there?
this property is not within the 100-year regulated floodplain. It's sort of uphill from the canal, which is where the floodplain primarily is.
Nobody else? I'll ask for some public comment. We do have somebody? No, no, we don't have any public comment. That being said, it doesn't look like there's any issues. It does look pretty good plan to me. With that, I'll introduce somebody or ask somebody to make a motion then, I guess.
I'll make a motion to approve appeal number 21-1922 as submitted.
Is a second? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nobody's opposed. The motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, folks.
Okay, next appeal is 21-1923, and it's Peter Chapman and Pilar Otto. I hope I'm saying that right. If you can, you're here, you can step up and get sworn in. Are you both speaking or just him? Put the mic in front of you. You need to speak into the mic. You're going to get sworn in, and then at the meantime, Adam, is there any exhibits here that we need to bring up?
Yes. We have the application as A1, site plan as A2. We have reasons for the requested relief that were typed out as A3, B1, proof of publication, B2, proof of posting, and B3, notice to the neighbors.
You guys okay if I remove my mask while I'm talking?
Yeah, sure. Make sure you speak into the microphone. You're sworn in. Did you give them your name and address? Got it on? All right, we have the exhibits entered in. I see your plan. Why don't you explain to the board what you're trying to do?
So we're looking to replace the fence around our property. We're putting a privacy fence along the rear border, which is in line with code. We currently around the other three sides have a mix of 2 rail and 3 rail, so 3 and 4 foot post and rail. And we'd like to be able to increase it to 4 foot all the way around. So we're applying for a variance to allow us to do that for the front yard. We want to do that mostly just to better contain. We've got 2 very active dogs, and the 2 rail fence is not enough to effectively contain them. Lots of deer who they chase. We've got a busy road. And the way that our property is set up, it was originally when the neighborhood was created, it was 2 lots. So our house is on 1 lot, and the majority of our yard is on the next lot to the side. So the zoning distinction between the backyard, the side yard, the front yard doesn't really make sense to our property. And we don't really want to divide off what's defined as the backyard separately from the front yard.
Corner lot.
Yeah.
A lot of baggage with a corner lot.
So we've checked with our direct neighbors either side who share the property line. They are fine with it. But also our front fence right now, it's screened by very mature plantings. So you really can't see the fence from the road. It's set back 20 to 50 feet. So I don't believe it's a problem in terms of aesthetics or visibility for traffic or anything else.
I just want to correct the record if I can.
Yeah,
real
go
quick.
ahead, please.
Oh, I thought it is. It's on.
A little
Oh.
closer, yeah.
It's not a corner lot.
It's not a corner
I thought it
lot.
was a
No,
corner
it's not a corner lot. No.
My mistake.
Originally, I believe when it was built, the property went all the way to the corner. It's gradually been built on. So currently we have two. Well, we actually merged them a few years ago. We now have, it's a one big lot. Originally was two. So the house is on one, and then the bulk of our yard is on the other lot. What was the other lot?
So is your fence going onto the other lot?
The fence originally went all the way around both lots. Our driveway goes at the center. The house is on one side, the yard is on the other side.
So just to clarify, you're looking to have a 4-foot post and rail fence around 3 of 4 sides of your property.
Around 3 or 4 sides.
Okay,
correct.
and the rear, it's a mix of 5 and 6 foot fences? or-
Correct.
Okay. In the front yard, how far back from this front property line are you looking to put the 4-foot fence in?
Exactly where the current fence is, which I believe is marked on the site plan. I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's
Somewhere
marked on
between
there was
30
like
and 40
20,
feet.
I think a minimum of 20, maximum of 50 feet.
Peter, Mike?
Do you have a question?
So is this fence, just to make sure I understood you right, is this for fence protruding into the front yard? I'm just trying to look at this.
So it appears that it's in his front yard setback.
Yes,
But this board in the past has done 10-foot increments for increased in from the 3-foot minimum. And as it appears, he's about at a minimum 20 feet from his front property line.
And he is putting, it is an existing fence line.
It is an existing fence line, yeah, correct.
So your existing fence is 3 feet
Correct.
in the front yard?
In the front and the side, correct.
Okay. And if I understand Matt correctly, right now, as proposed, it's 20 feet from,
I believe, I should have brought a copy of the plan. I believe that's what the plan shows, correct. Thank you.
So it's the blue line is in the.
It's the blue line. It's going to follow the blue line, correct.
So to clarify, you're seeking it's basically just a variance for the front yard setback.
okay.
Correct. 'Cause I believe the rear and the side yard, the 4 feet, we don't need a variance for, just the front yard.
I have no further questions.
Or will you participate in this?
No, we are not.
I don't really have anything else. Is there any public comment? No public comment? No public comment? There was one thing I did see I wanted to ask a question on, if I just guys give me a second. There's something about could have been from the other appeal. Now 4-foot fence, 6 foot in that one section. 3 foot, no, I'm mistaken. That being said,
I'll make a motion to approve appeal 21-1923 as submitted.
Second.
any discussion? Township's not involved. No discussion. I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? No one's opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Moving along, next appeal is 21-1924, Timothy and Abby Bevington. If you can, are they here? Let's bring them up.
Hello.
Hello,
Hey,
how you doing?
good, good. How are you?
Are you sitting in your car? Where are you at there?
I'm charging at the Tesla station. I'm not moving.
Oh, I see. Okay, Adam, while you're being sworn in, you might have to use the mic, Bill.
Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Your name and address, please, to be clear.
Yeah, Nate. Yes, Nathan Simcox, 3602 Harper's Crossing, Langhorne, 19047.
Okay, you're representing the applicant.
I am yeah, I put in the application for the permit and the variance for, I'm the contractor doing the work there.
Okay. Excuse me? Yeah, you have any exhibits?
We have the application as A1, site plan as A2. We have the stormwater and impervious sheets, which are, there's 3 of them. Those will be collectively marked as A3, B1, proof of publication, B2, proof of posting, B3, notice to the neighbors.
Okay, tell us what you're planning on doing here.
Just building, I guess the property is residential at 18%, and we're just looking to add patio area to go to, I believe, what we submitted was to get to 22.3% from 18, just adding interlocking paver patio area. That's about it. And we would, you know, install an infiltration trench to, you know, accommodate for that water displacement.
Oh, I had some questions. You're going from 22.3 to, from 18 to 22.3? Is that correct?
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, you know what? I had a problem with this. I hate to use the word problem, but
Uh-oh.
the plan. was
Okay.
rather elementary. The patio area, you put in a paver patio. Is that what you're doing here?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And is that your drawing?
It may have been. I usually do pools, but this is a friend of mine that wants a patio, so we don't have, you know, the topographical done on this one. We're just trying to display. Oh, yeah, that was the plot plan that was given to me from the township, and I just added it, the area that we were trying to cover.
That little scribble there where it says new patio area?
That's new patio area. Hopefully.
Barb, is the township participating on this one?
Not in this one, no.
I was the plan was a little bit unimpressive.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if the permit office would accept anything like that.
Typically, yeah. I mean, when we're usually within the impervious coverage, we'll just get the plot plan, map out the size and relative dimension of it and where we are going to be with the impervious calculations, and it's acceptable through Lower Makefield. I've done quite a few that were not requiring this variance, but we typically, you know, do pool installations and do have topographical surveys created for those, you know, because they're a little more complex with elevations and whatnot.
So from what I'm hearing, you're willing to do whatever the township asks you to do for infiltration? For
I would be, yeah, whatever measures is required in terms of volume, absolutely. We'll install that, you know, reciprocating where the water runs off that patio and then trapping it. That way we can get it into the ground.
I know the board usually likes a more specific plan that shows all that. But I'll defer to my colleagues if they have a question on this, if they think this is rather innocuous or not.
What's
Jim.
the, oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
I was going to ask Jim if he's okay with the numbers and if he's willing to work with the applicant.
I did review the numbers. There is one minor error in his calculation. The trench length would need to be 27 feet in order to meet the volume reduction requirement. So you're just slightly off on that with your hand
Okay.
calculation.
Okay.
For the permit, obviously, we would need to have a detail of how you're going to construct the infiltration trench, which is a standard detail that you've done before for pool jobs. So we would need to see that, and then just the patio dimensions so we can verify that it meets what you've outlined here in your application. But otherwise, we're fine with it.
Appreciate that.
How about you guys?
I have another question here, and that relates to the calculations before we even get that far, and the note here about the existing pavilion. Was that existing pavilion in the 18% already existing calculation, or is that part of what you're looking for to mitigate here?
That's existing on the drawing calculated.
Okay.
Um, anybody else? Barb, did I ask you if you were participating on this? I don't remember. I did.
And we are not
We're not?
participating in this application.
She's still not. It's okay. My feelings aren't hurt.
Mine are.
I do see, so we're putting in the pool, the impervious surface is going way up. And the numbers, Jim said, we're just off a little bit. Is that correct? Correct.
Yeah, we'll certainly, accommodate what needs to be done in terms of making sure we get that volume compensated for. It's not a problem.
Anybody?
Public comment.
Public comment? Anybody out there for public comment? Public comment? No public comment? Geez. All right. Ain't over yet.
Uh-oh.
All right, well, no public comment. Township said not involved. We should be okay with. Jim will accept the a good drawing on this for the permit and correct the issues that he mentioned, and you'll do whatever he suggests.
That's fine. Yeah, we can just pull an outline of the infiltration trench off topographical demonstrating how
Yeah,
we'll.
you're gonna
put that
need that
infiltration
for the
trench in.
permit.
That's
for
no
sure.
problem. We got
All
plenty
right,
covered.
just want to make sure you understood that.
Yeah, 100%. We want to make it right.
You got a question? Anyone make a motion?
Make a motion to approve appeal number 21-1924, subject to submission and approval of a stormwater mitigation plan. The township
From an effective rate of
from the effect
22.3 to 18.
to 18%.
Second.
A second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Since no one's opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great one.
All right, I'm sorry. So now we're at, right? 1925. We're at this appeal is 21-1925. Derek Camp. Is he in the audience or is he, oh, there he is.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. You can be sworn in by Bill, and then Adam will introduce exhibits.
Derek, do you solemnly swear a testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, we have the application as A1, the site plan as A2, the impervious and stormwater calculations. There's two sheets that's collectively marked as A3. Proof of publication B1, proof of posting is B2, B3 is the notice to the neighbors, and I believe the township is participating in this
Yes, they are.
appeal.
All right, tell us what you're trying to do.
I did bring Steve from Longford Landscape. They're the people doing the work for us. So, I mean, as far as I know, we're trying to put in in a fiberglass pool, but he's going to have much more information than I will. So I figured I'd bring the professional.
Is he here with you?
He's on the call at some point. So he's in here. I saw him in the waiting room.
So is he testifying on your behalf?
Yes.
Okay, let's bring him in. Oh. He's coming.
Hey, Allison and Steven, could you start your video, please?
Allison jumped off, so you won't be able to see her.
Okay. And who do we have?
All right, Steven's now in the room. Steven, you just need to unmute.
unmute your mic and he hear us and you,
There you go.
Hello?
yes, there you are. And now who are you? Oh, you need to be sworn in. You're right. Thank you.
Stephen, do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You tell me your last name, Stephen?
Schwartz?
Okay. Now you're representing what? The contractor here?
Yes, Longford Landscape.
Okay. All right, so we've seen the plan. Explain to us what you're doing.
We're installing a fiberglass pool and some pool decking around it, some patio around it.
Are we just looking at an impervious case here, or we have side setbacks here? Just impervious. You know, I'm curious, Jim, and maybe you can answer this. On the plan, it says that with note 1, assume since requirement is not available on record plan, and 2, for lots created prior, we got that, and existing non-conformity. Is there anything there that concerns you, especially in that number 1, Jim? On that number 1 footnote on this page right here. It says assume since requirement is not available on record plan.
I don't know where you're,
Yeah, I'm sorry, on the zoning summary 4, footnote 1. I just thought that was an odd note. No,
everyone make sure your microphone's close enough so they can hear.
yes, sir.
Sorry. Janelle told me to say that.
Back to my note 1.
Yeah, basically, that's what they had shown in the plan. I guess the record plan they had didn't have a minimum lot size. It's irrelevant to this application.
Now you do show an infiltration type seepage bed. I see that. With those numbers there, correct, Mr. Majewski?
Yes, they are correct.
They are correct.
And what they have shown, it will mitigate the impervious surface back to what is currently existing, which their plan notes as 24.9%.
That's what it is now? That's what
Yes.
it is now, 24.9. Guys, any questions before I ask Barb, because I know she's participating? Yeah. We can wait. Barb, do you want to?
I just have a couple questions. So if I'm looking at the plan, it appears that the in-ground pool and coping will be immediately behind the asphalt driveway.
No,
Where is the pool going to be located?
well, the pool, you know, you have the driveway and then you got about, I don't know, about 6 feet or so to the fence. And then from the fence to the pool itself, there's probably, I don't know, maybe about 30 feet.
There's 30 feet between the area that's marked as asphalt driveway and the fenced area where the pool will start?
No, between the asphalt driveway and the fenced-in area is probably about 6 feet to where
Okay,
the fence is. And then from the fence to the pool coping itself is probably about 30 feet. I don't have a scale on me, but probably about 30 feet.
now when I'm looking at the plan, it appears that the coping around the in-ground pool appears to be of various widths. What is the narrowest width of the pool decking area?
The narrowest width is 4 feet.
And then at the rear of where it says in-ground pool, how wide is that decking area?
It goes 4 to 6. And then to 6 on the side facing the house. And then I believe, I don't have the in front of me, but it goes to, and then when it comes out, I think it's about 12 feet out from the pool at that widest point there, 12 and like say 15. I think on the other side. But I don't have the plan in front of me.
So in order to reduce the amount of impervious, why couldn't three sides of the pool area have a deck coping of 3 feet and then one section have a wider area for chairs?
We put the narrow side, so you can walk around and, clean the pool out and a little bit of area in the back and the sides. And we put the most decking on the front there by the door. I mean.
But my question is, why couldn't it be consistent, 3 feet or 4 feet wide around 3 sections and then just the wider area that as it's shown?
Just to give you more room to, put things around the pool. I mean, we
Okay.
could definitely, if the board wants us to narrow, it'll be narrow a little bit, but it's just there to, make sure you can put enough room to put things around the pool.
And what is going to be surrounding the pool decking area that's not concrete?
Landscaping and mulch and grass.
So it's not going to be scaped with stone of any nature?
No stone, just plants and mulch and landscaping.
So would the applicant agree that no gravel will be installed in that area to help reduce any impacted gravel that may increase impervious surface unknowingly?
I can tell you, we don't have gravel or rock going there.
So if the board were inclined to grant your application, would you agree to that as a condition, that there
Yeah.
not be any rock or gravel installed in that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, can somebody explain to me, what is this concrete patio section that's also proposed?
Well, those are pavers. It says concrete, but they're gonna be pavers.
The section that's closest to, I guess, the back of the house is pavers?
That'll be pavers also.
Well, that's not how it's marked. You have a,
Actually, not, well, he does have concrete patio, so it'll be concrete patio.
it is a concrete patio, a part of
Concrete
which is going to be covering an existing slate patio.
No, the existing slate patio will be taken out and a concrete patio be put in.
So the area of that existing slate patio that's to be removed, is that shown up as in your calculations as a 250 square feet being removed?
Yes.
But then you're covering it with a concrete patio, so shouldn't that number be added back in?
I mean, the engineer did it. I mean, he had all the calculations.
Well, looking at your calculations, it looked like 250 square feet of, it says concrete / hardscape is being removed. What section on this plan is that area being removed?
That's that one section right there, the slate patio. That's the piece that's being removed. There's no other areas that are there that are being removed, just that one section.
Okay, and then you're adding 4,114 square feet of impervious surface?
No, not 4,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're adding 1,670 square feet.
That sounds more like it, yeah.
And did you add back in that 250 square feet of impervious surface that is going to now become concrete?
That would be part of it, yes.
Okay. And what is the size of that concrete patio?
What's the size of the concrete patio? I believe the one rectangular piece is like 10 by 10. And then the other piece, I believe, is like about 20 by 20, something like that. Again, I don't have the plan in front of me to give you accurate dimensions.
You're telling me that the larger rectangular area is 20 by 20, but the smaller extension is 10 by 10?
Yeah, that would be for eventually maybe a spa on there eventually, but for now it's just a patio, so I believe it's 10 by 10.
Yeah. And you had mentioned earlier that there's going to be a pool building.
Pool building, no.
Is it just going to be an equipment area?
It'll just be the pool, the filter and the pump.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Is the pool equipment enclosed or is it just on a pad?
It's just on a pad.
I have a question here. The effective, well, the impervious area that you're putting on this is almost twice what's in the zoning for the particular lot. Have you looked at ways to try to reduce the amount of impervious area you're looking to add? This does seem like quite a bit.
Okay,
That's what he's saying is where you make that curve, where it says concrete patio, right at that curve there, can you go straighter for a while before you make that big piece there? I think that's what Barb was kind of thinking herself, and plus Pete saying, I kind of agree with that. You have to have that so big.
I'm going to third that and say that, this is a lot of impervious for this property. I would think you'd want to kind of think about this a little bit more and cut back on what you're proposing.
how much do you think we should cut back on it?
Well, I like to see it go straight from that line where concrete patio is, right there, go straight across. That's what I would like. Now, can't speak for my rest of my colleagues, but.
I think the patio around the pool can be cut back. I think the concrete patio to the west of the house could be cut back. I think you need to tighten up what you're proposing.
Narrow the walk around the pool, Copen, as was suggested before, and maybe that patio where the slate patio is, just look at, cut lopping off that section that's to the extending past the house there and just going with basically paving over the slate area and bringing it back to the house.
So if we lop off that smaller rectangular area and just draw that line straight to, you had the cursor right
Yes.
there, just have that patio there.
Yeah,
And
that's
just get rid of that piece.
in addition to what the rest of us have been discussing about shrinking it back around the pool area.
If we were to shrink back that area on the back there, make it say 3 feet, make it on the left-hand side, make that, make that 4 feet.
What's the width of that
Put it
area
back a
around the
foot.
pool now? 3 feet, 4 feet?
4 and 6
4
feet, it jumps to
I
12.
believe it's 4 and 6 and 6.
And around 12. You can't make that just 3 feet all the way around like everybody else does
All the way around where?
around the pool. I mean, you're
The
asking for
entire
a lot
pool?
of extra impervious. So yeah, like that was just 3
Well, we
feet.
can do, I can do the back, the left, and then that other side where we have it there, and then we can just leave the larger area where I have it right there as the main area for the, for everything, where they want to put chairs and things like that.
Okay.
So were you willing to cut back on that a little bit, plus the patio or the concrete patio at the house? Or the right
We
behind the house?
can take off that, that smaller rectangular area by the lower patio there, where the slate patio is, and we could make the area on the back there. We have the cursor, make that little, make it all say
Where's your cursor at? Wiggle it around. I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm sorry.
that area there. Where you make that, make that
Yeah,
3
can you make
feet.
it like that?
Make
all the way
that 3 feet
around?
up. Well, not all the way around. Where you have it there, we'll make it two there.
Why not?
And then give that area there, well, they need room for chairs and tables and things like that around the pool, so.
Jim, the inlet, it doesn't seem to be a place that would collect runoff from the pool. Are you okay with the location?
That's something we typically have our township engineer review at the time of the pool application.
So if we can tighten the three sides up, toward the back of the property, which looks good, and then on the north side, and then of course the west side, and then leave a little bit extra room for your patio chairs on the east side of the pool. I think I would be okay with that. At least I would be. I can't speak for everybody. Is that something you would be okay with? You still have room for your chairs because you'd have that extended area on the east side of the pool.
I'd be fine with it.
Or the south side, I'm sorry.
Yes.
South side. Is that something you would consider?
Yes.
If I may, Mr. Zamparelli,
Yes, please.
I would recommend maybe continuing this matter to afford the landscaper the additional time to maybe come up with an amended plan to present to the board.
I think that's a great idea.
I agree.
I think she's right. One of the colleagues has said it too, and I do think it's right because this plan really doesn't reflect, and it's a lot different. Is that something you can, we can continue with, and you can come back and we can show a new plan based on what we just talked about today, us and the township?
So I can amend the plan and then drop off the amended plan?
We would continue to the next meeting. You could amend the plan and then we could pick it up.
Okay, when would be the next meeting?
Yes.
When would be the next meeting?
17th?
The 17th? Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Is it? Is there room for that? Yeah. You want to ask for a continuance then to do that? Is that what you want? Or you want to, you'd be okay with the continuance so you can work with your landscaper and give us a better plan of what we all have asked you to do?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the meeting would be, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, is there public comment on this? No public comment. Thank you. And the next meeting would be
17th.
the 17th. Will you be all right by then? 17th? Have a new drawing? Have your
Yeah.
landscaper? All right. That being said, somebody make a motion to continue this to April or August 17th. Is that correct?
I'll make a motion to continue 21/19/25 to the 17th.
Second.
Any discussion? There'll be no discussion. All those in favor of the continuance, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, continuance is granted. Make sure we get a new plan. Okay? Thank you. Just give me a minute to put my act together here with the paperwork. This one. This one. Yeah. Oh, you guys.
I should say that about you.
Touche. Okay, here we are. We're back with, I believe it's 21-1906. Am I correct there, Adam? I believe that's correct. Yes. If I recall, now wait a minute, before we get started, everybody's sworn in already, right?
Correct.
You were here, you were here before. You're the guy who wrote the plan,
This is the- Mr. Chairman, this is the continuation of the.
Of the last
application
meeting,
of
right.
Mr. and Mrs. Deck. At the
Right.
last hearing, we presented our engineer.
Yes.
Unati.
Yes.
He has
Yes.
yet to be cross-examined by Ms. Kirk or Mr. Fenningham, who
Right,
previously identified himself and entered his appearance on behalf of next-door neighbor opponents.
right. And Mr. is it Fenningham, is that his name?
Fenningham.
He was going to bring in an expert, if I remember, that's where we left off.
I think he has, but
Mhm.
that will be after we're done crossing.
Right, okay.
Redirecting
Okay,
Mr. Giannotti if necessary.
all right. All right, do we need to enter anything new? There was nothing new to add, right?
Not yet.
Not yet? So do we need to say anything more here? I mean, Barb,
Whenever you're
I
ready.
think we're up for cross-examination.
we're up for
unless
cross-examination
that
now.
makes Any more direct?
Ms. Kirk or Mr. Fenningham, I know Mr. Fenningham is here,
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman.
I have a few questions and then I
Okay.
think Mr. Fettingham will have more. So I just want to clarify, the property is consisting of two parcels, correct? One parcel is what's being referred to as a flagpole parcel,
Yes, that's correct.
and that parcel is 0.7 acres of land?
0.69 acre, 0.169 acres, so 0.17.
Okay, somebody, yeah, so I need somebody to clarify the acreage for each of these parcels.
Right. I think the question was what you referred to as the flagpole parcel. The long narrow piece is 0.169 acres or 7,402 square feet.
That's correct.
Parcel 20-39-4-2.
And Mr. Giannotti, because I know you're having help here from Mr. Murphy, that flagpole parcel is the one that's very long and narrow with, it's about 410 feet long.
That's correct.
And that right now is an existing separate freestanding lot.
That's correct with its own tax parcel assigned.
Adjacent to it is the more traditional, as you testified, rectangular parcel, correct?
That's correct.
And that parcel is 116 feet wide by 268 feet long.
That's correct.
And that parcel consists of 1.7 acres.
0.7 acres. So that's the bigger parcel. It's
That's the bigger parcel. Okay.
about 30,513 square feet.
So between the two parcels, you have a total of how much in acreage?
0.869 acres.
And that computes to roughly a little less than 38,000 square feet.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the larger, more traditional parcel is the one that's landlocked at the present time.
That is correct.
That has absolutely no means of access at all.
Yes, correct.
And is there anything currently built on that parcel?
No, there's nothing on that parcel. There's a portion of the shed that extends over that lot line that is owned by the parcel 203904, but there is nothing, there's no other structure on that property.
Are these parcels separately owned by two different individuals?
Currently owned by the same individual, separate parcels.
Okay, but there's still one property owner for both parcels.
Correct.
And the decks are the equitable owners of that.
Of the two parcels that we referenced, correct.
Okay, so they're presently under an agreement of sale to purchase the properties.
Yes.
Correct.
Now, I believe you indicated that the McDonald's, who are represented by Mr. Fenningham, share the northern boundary line with that landlocked parcel.
Yes.
what is the grading from that northern boundary line across the parcel? Is it higher up at the northern line where the McDonald's property is?
Sure. So our property from, if you were to look at our property from east to west, east being the front property shared with the existing, the front property line, and then the west being along the stream, the property grades to the stream, obviously, as you slope back, that where the house is located would be at the highest point of this property. The high,
What plan are you referencing when you're looking at that?
on this one, it's previously entered as exhibit. I'm looking at the stormwater and landscape exhibit that has the grading on it. Our zoning plan does not have grading on it. I believe the stormwater exhibit was entered as exhibit A11.
That's what I'm trying to find.
It's the plan that shows this house and then a green shading all around it.
Okay.
It's also shown on our survey if that's easier for you to find.
Oh, I have it. I have A11. Thank you. All right, so the property actually slopes.
Towards the stream from the common lot line of the existing parcel and the common owner towards the stream located in the western portion of that property.
Okay.
You're at elevation approximately 89.5. As you get towards the stream, you're at elevation 83.
And I don't recall offhand, but what color did you use to highlight the stream itself?
On this plan, the stream itself is not being highlighted. This is showing our stormwater features. So you would have to come to an earlier exhibit. The stream is actually highlighted in a different color because it's part of an easement. If you remember, we have the stream clearing easement.
Right. So if I'm looking at your exhibit A10, which you designated as alternate wetland exhibit, there's a large section highlighted in green. That is your wetlands area, correct?
That is the actual wetlands, correct?
Is the stream that section that runs, looks like a little narrow curved area within the center almost of that wetland area?
Yeah, so in the middle of the green, you'll see a streamline that's meandering through the property, and it shows two 25-foot offsets on either side of the stream.
Okay.
That's the existing stream cleaning easement that exists on the property. So the stream runs within that easement.
And that is considered a higher area than where the frontage of the property would be along Woodland Drive?
Opposite. So the house is higher than the stream. So the whole property grades to the stream.
Okay, and you're proposing to install a stormwater conveyance system, mostly of which is going to consist of a rain garden located in the front of the property, correct?
That is correct.
And that is at the highest grade level of the property when they're consolidated, correct?
Correct.
And it's your opinion that use of this rain garden will be sufficient to collect all of the stormwater runoff created by this construction?
So we are collecting the entire roof of the house, conveying it into the stormwater basin, and collecting all of it and managing rate, volume, and water quality. We're actually providing, if you look at the ordinance standards, we're providing double the requirement for stormwater management by this application.
Based on what your testimony is, your stormwater facilities are 2 times greater in cubic feet collection than what would otherwise be required under the ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. Now, for the rear of the property, you have a proposed deck area. Is that going to be a wooden slat deck, or is that going to be like concrete?
It's gonna be a wooden deck.
Okay. So other than the existing house itself and the proposed asphalt driveway, there is no other footprint of impervious surface coverage that needs to be collected?
That is correct.
Now, I believe you said in your earlier testimony that the township ranks those natural resource conditions that need to be addressed first, correct?
That is correct.
And one of those are those easements that you have already identified as existing on the property.
Correct.
2 of them, I believe.
We're referring, Barb, to the URSAM plan that was introduced previously as exhibit,
It was A4 collectively with the zoning plan and URSAM plan.
and on that plan, it has, as you just inquired, you have the matrix for the various natural resources on the site, the level of protection that the ordinance requires for each specific category, and what level of disturbance we were proposing for each. And you're right, there was a reference to the several existing easements that have been in place for
Years.
40, 50 years.
They're shown in pink on the plan, and you'll see that it takes the majority of the flagpole lot is encompassed by two easements, and then you have the stream cleaning easement, which is shown in pink as it runs along the stream.
All right, so the reason I'm asking a question is when your direct testimony, you said the order of magnitude would be easements are the most restrictive, then you get the floodplain, then you have floodplain soils, lakes, steep slopes, and then woodlands.
That's correct.
When you identified the wetlands, where does that fit in this order of magnitude?
Wetlands come in right after floodplain and floodplain soils, then it goes to wetlands. So the order of magnitude is floodplain, floodplain soils, lakes, and ponds, then you get into wetlands.
So based on your interpretation of the ordinance, in effect, wetlands is sort of near the bottom of the magnitude.
I would put it in the middle.
Okay.
So easements, floodplain, then wetlands when it comes to this plan. Then you have steep slopes and then woodlands.
And your plan is asking to be able to disturb a section of the wetlands. I believe you put it as a flood fringe area for temporary construction staging, but that would be actually a wetlands area, correct?
It was for flood. We did say it correctly. It was for flood fringe, a temporary disturbance, which is permitted. It's not a permanent disturbance, just for grading.
Okay. And then you're going to disturb approximately 22% of the wetland buffer area that is otherwise considered to be protected.
Correct.
Okay. And is that as the result of only the construction, or is that the result of the placement of the house?
We did have an exhibit. It was exhibit A9, which showed the disturbance of wetland buffer. And it's, to answer your question, it is a disturbance of the house.
Okay.
That is impacting that wetland buffer shown in yellow on that plan.
So just so,
Plan is entitled Wetland Exhibit.
A9, okay.
Remember, everyone that's looking at it, there is a top portion of the plan and the bottom. The top portion was the original plan and original layout of the house. The lower section was the revised plan that was the subject of the comparison and testimony last time.
Okay, so, and this is why I'm questioning. So on that plan, the green area that's highlighted is the wetland area, correct?
Correct.
And then you have two different shadings of yellow on the plan.
Should be one shade of yellow.
Okay, well, I have two different shades of yellow. One is a brighter color than the other. So that area that is in the darker, brighter yellow says it's the flood hazard zone. And then in between that bright yellow shading and the green, that which looks to be a more of a muted yellow color looks to be the wetland buffer area. Can I approach Mr. Zamparelli?
That's a bad print. That explains it. It's a bad print. Yeah, you can see the streaking of the pen. This is all supposed to be, there's only two colors on this plan. There's a green and a yellow. So your plan should look like what's on the screen now and also what's on our plan.
Okay, so not in the little block is identified wetland buffer area. That is that entire yellow area.
Correct. That area is this entire area. That's correct. Bad printer.
Now, you calculated under the ordinance that the measurement for the wetland buffer area from the edge of the resource protection line has to be 100 feet. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
But then you're indicating that depending upon the plantings and the trees within that area, you could actually argue for a 50-foot buffer area.
Yes.
Where would you measure that 50-foot buffer area?
So the ordinance provides criteria for the amount of wetland buffer required for a wetland. It's based on the vegetation from the 50 feet to 100 feet from the edge of the wetland provided. So 50 feet, and Mr. Majewski may be able to explain this a little bit better, but 50 feet is depending on if there's a lot of vegetation within that first 50 feet, you need less buffer. So the factor is that you're getting the water quality from the thicker vegetation, and they're keeping the wetlands protected. So as the water runs off and gets into the wetlands, it's running through a denser vegetation, so you need less of a width.
So if I'm measuring based on the plan that's on the screen, would the 50 feet be measured from the start of that green section forward towards the house?
Yes.
Okay. What type of vegetation needs to be planted within that area that would allow a 50-foot buffer area versus 100 feet?
It would be a mix. It would be over 12 inches of vegetation over a certain length. So trees, denser grass, just a thicker vegetation along a percentage of that wetland.
So would that area, if it was heavily planted with trees and landscaping, look to be what other areas have designated as meadow type areas?
Correct.
You also indicated that the applicant was willing to plant evergreen or deciduous trees in that area.
Yes.
Is the purpose of those tree plantings in that wetland buffer area merely to filter groundwater before it gets into the stream?
Yes.
Are those trees designed in any way to absorb the water to prevent excessive stormwater runoff?
Yes, it's a double credit. We are taking credit for some additional plantings of trees on the property right now. So any additional trees planted within that buffer would, of course, increase the water quality of the buffer area.
Does the township's code designate the type of trees that should be planted in order to provide more vegetation within a wetland buffer area?
They do have planting criteria, correct?
Are there specific species designated?
On our plan right now, we do not show species. We do have a planting plan that shows 5 deciduous trees being planted within that stretch, and deciduous trees are part of the approved species for wetland revitalization and stormwater credits.
So the reason I'm asking this question is if you look in the township, there's an awful lot of scraggly evergreen trees planted that have very shallow roots.
Mm-hmm.
And the concern that I have is if those types of evergreen trees are planted and you have a heavy downpour, those trees will easily become uprooted, fall over, and no longer serve the purpose. Is the applicant willing to plant additional trees in that area as recommended by the township that may be of a more substantive cost than merely scraggly evergreen trees?
On our plan, we're proposing deciduous trees for that reason, something hardy that can withstand the wetland area and inundation by water.
So that's a condition that the applicant would be willing to concede to if
Yes.
this board were inclined to grant the request, okay?
Yes.
Is there any type of fencing or other type of markers intended to set out what that wetland buffer area is?
Not at this time on our plan.
Is the applicant willing to consider installation of, say, a split rail fence to designate the required wetland buffer area?
Yes.
The answer is yes, and I know that in a prior application a year or so ago, the zoning hearing board in similar circumstances made a recommendation of that together with some signage to identify the extent of the easement area that would be done in concert with the establishment of a conservation easement in those back areas as well. So
See,
board previously in another application suggested that we were agreeable, then we would be agreeable to the same type of protocol in this application as well.
So,
The fence, signage, and the establishment of a conservation easement in the back.
so in addition to a conservation easement, because I'm always concerned that in the future, the restrictions relative to conservation will not be as rigid as they are now, would the applicant be willing to impose a recorded restriction that prohibits the construction of any type of structure
Yeah.
within that buffer area?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we would, of course, identify the township, giving them the right to enforce those restrictions. If that's what you want. In other cases, you would have an independent conservancy do it, but since there already is an easement over a large measure of the stream for stream cleaning, that this conservation easement would be layered on top of that, with the township given the right to enforce any restrictions that would be included in it.
So if the zoning hearing board were inclined to accept your theory of an alternate wetland buffer, can you actually measure a 50-foot buffer area from the limit of the wetland towards the house? And you can get a clear 50-foot buffer that in that whole strip?
Yes.
And that's what you're showing on that alternate plan? Is that alternate plan?
That is showing a 50-foot buffer off of the wetlands.
That is the plan that Justin's referring to as alternate wetland exhibit. And what that plan shows, Ms. Kirk, is that 50-foot wetland buffer that you suggested just now.
Okay.
Jim, can you make that plan just a little bit bigger there? Is that possible? I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's it? Yes.
I think he means, yeah, like,
Yeah, I'm just trying to see what that 50-foot, there it is. I couldn't see the number there.
I'm not sure if you can tell, but if you look at the bottom left corner of the house,
The what?
of the proposed house, the bottom left corner of the proposed house.
Yeah.
There's a very narrow section between the house and that 50-foot proposed buffer area. Do you have any idea how much of the distance that is?
Off the edge of the buffer, I'm assuming it's between 7 to 10 feet, maybe a little bit more.
Okay, so it's not going to be just like 1 or 2 feet. type
No,
of
no,
thing.
no. I mean, that couldn't be maintained. So it's enough area to be maintained.
3 feet.
Off
It
of
says
the
3 feet? Does it?
It gives you 53 feet from the start of the buffer. Since the buffer is 50 feet, that will leave you with 3 feet.
That's my fault. That's a different plan. So it is 3 feet.
All right.
No one said I was good at math. Yeah, it is. There's so many plans that we're looking at here. So,
Go ahead. Thank you. Now, you indicate that the house that is proposed on this revised plan was reduced in size by 556 square feet, correct?
that is correct.
So the whole first floor footprint with what you indicated was the proposed garage would be 2,008 square feet?
Correct. Yeah.
It's a 2-story structure?
Yes.
And the maximum height of this structure won't exceed 35 feet as required by the ordinance?
Correct.
What type of roofing or is intended? Is it like a peaked roof or?
I'm assuming it's a peak roof. Yeah. The applicant is here with us tonight, if that's a concern of yours.
I was just curious as to the style of roofing in order to enable the gutters to have the downspouts into the rain garden, because I am sure slate
Yep.
roofing is going to have a different requirement than a pitched roof.
No, and the applicant is an architect, and we've already made him well aware that we need to make sure that happens. So that's a condition we can meet.
So that's a condition that the applicant would agree to, that all downspouts, if approved, or all building gutters have to be,
All water collected from the roof will be directed via gutter to the rain garden, via rain barrels or whatever other conveyance they're required to get to the rain garden in front of the house, right? As depicted on the exhibit.
Yeah, I believe your testimony was all roof gutters would be directed to the rain garden.
Connected to the rain garden. Right.
Now, what is the status since the last hearing of the potential rain barrel at the corner of the building?
So our calculations work over and beyond without the rain barrel. The rain barrel was added and not taken credit for. It's just showing an option of what we can propose. If we were to propose some of your irrigation system on site, capture and reuse is a great form of stormwater management. We are proposing a proposed rain garden, the additional landscape plantings, and the disconnected impervious area. And collectively, without the rain barrel, that is 200 times the township requirement for stormwater on this site. So the rain barrel is just another feature which we can or cannot add on. It's just depending on how it works with the design.
Where would the rain barrel be installed?
The rain barrels usually go underneath a downspout. So a roof downspout goes into a rain barrel, fills up the rain barrel, and then any overflow would be conveyed into the stormwater basin. So the way it works is you hold it in the rain barrel, you use it for irrigation on site, whether you have a garden or some sort of sprinkler system, or it just gets conveyed to the stormwater basin at a later time. So
Wouldn't the rain barrel be in contradiction to all the roof gutters being downspouted into the underground rain garden?
Eventually it's the same intent. If it doesn't get sprayed as capture and reuse, which is a better form of stormwater management, it gets conveyed into the rain garden. It never gets discharged over land anywhere else.
And your earlier testimony, I believe, indicated that the existing stormwater conveyance system within that easement area already has an existing riprap apron.
A substantial riprap apron located within the property itself that we are going to be connecting into.
Is there any enlargement or alteration proposed to that existing riprap apron?
There's no need, no.
And all of that, Barb, is depicted on the exhibit, stormwater and landscape exhibit from the last time. You can see the location of the rain barrel. Folks thought that was important, and also the riprap at the end of that stormwater conveyance system in the flagpole shaped parcel.
Now, I understand that the flagpole lot is going to be primarily converted to an asphalt driveway, correct?
Correct.
And your testimony indicated that the water from the driveway will not be captured and diverted to the proposed rain garden.
Correct.
You indicated that it would go through a Riverstone apron before overland through the wetland buffer and then conveyed to the stream.
That's correct.
Where is the Riverstone apron?
The Riverstone apron is located at the back of the driveway. And if you look at the stormwater and landscape exhibit, it's labeled as proposed 2-foot wide Riverstone apron. It's not even necessary. It's just another form of filtration as water runs off of a driveway. The grass itself and the amount of length that there is before it enters the stream or the riprap is sufficient for water quality. We're just trying to overdo stormwater management as much as we can.
So then my question to you is, if I'm looking at your stormwater and landscape exhibit versus your alternate wetland exhibit, that proposed Riverstone riprap apron will fit in the open area and not encroach into that 50-foot wetland buffer?
Yes, we can make it work. We can go down to 1 foot at the edge there if it gets too tight.
Okay. And how long will that apron be?
It's the length of the driveway, which I don't have a dimension on, but it'll just continue the full length of the driveway along that hammer head there.
And at this point, your amended application is only seeking 4 variances, correct?
That's correct.
So it's requesting that setbacks be measured from lot lines and not from natural resource area lines, correct?
Yes.
That you be permitted, the applicants permitted a 10% disturbance of the flood fringe merely during construction.
Correct.
The applicants requesting a 22% disturbance of a wetland buffer, which essentially is requesting a 50-foot wetland buffer as opposed to a 100-foot wetland buffer.
Yes. It's a little less than 50. I mean, you're closer to 100, but yes.
And then the flagpole lot would only be 18 foot wide rather than the 25 feet that's required. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's the section that would be going out to Woodland Drive, right?
Correct.
One moment. I have no other questions.
Okay, now at this point, Mr. Fenningham, if he would come in, I don't know if he's here. Oh, there he is. Any place you can get a seat there, they'll let you share it with him. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just truly a treat.
Don't let him see your notes.
You're gonna need the microphone.
Good evening, board members. I'm John Fenningham. I represent Scott and Kathy McDonald, who are neighbors adjoining the Bassinger's property, including the flag lot that Justin has been testifying about this evening. May I call you Justin? Yes, sir. Thank you. I just want to reorient the board to some of the topography that Barbara captured. So the applicant's proposed house site is uphill from the proposed buffer area and creek.
No, that's the me. Yes.
And the proposed house site is downhill or downgrade from the Bassinger's existing home.
Yeah. Yes.
And the flag lot is sloped running down toward the creek.
Correct.
The proposed rain garden, or you called it a basin, is downgrade from the Bassinger's property where their existing house is, correct?
Yes.
But it's above the house location as depicted on your zoning plan.
The proposed house. It's above the proposed house. Correct.
The surface water runs across and down the applicant's site toward the creek bed.
Say that one more time.
The surface water runs down the sloped parcel, the flag lot, toward the creek bed.
Correct.
And do you agree that the McDonald's property is downhill and side gradient from the Bassinger's property, including the flag lot?
It's at the same elevation. It's downhill, but it's not side gradient. Downhill. They're both probably located at the pool of you're saying the Bassinger property or the McDonald property?
The Bassinger property. In other words, just to be clear, you mentioned east to west. So I'm just trying to get an orientation that the surface water flowing from the Bassinger's parcel where their house is and the flag lot runs downward and toward the McDonald's property.
It runs towards the stream.
And
correct.
And the stream.
That's not what you're saying incorrectly. It runs, the property is graded that it runs from the Bassinger property to the stream, not towards the McDonald's property.
Do you agree? Have you visited the site?
Multiple times.
Okay. And have you seen the McDonald's property?
I have.
And would you agree that the water flowing through the creek floods the McDonald's property and erodes the creek bed?
That's not something that I can weigh in on.
You haven't observed that?
I haven't. I wasn't out there during a stream, and I wouldn't say that the water from this property floods the stream bed. No.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm sure that at this point, this close to the McDonald property, the flooding on the McDonald property is not caused by a vacant lot with a dense vegetation flooding into the stream. So anything that's occurring at that point in the stream is due to a significant amount of runoff coming into that stream from upstream locations, which during an earlier testimony, I weighed in that this area, there's a lot of known flooding issues in this area. It's known. And the point that the McDonald property is at a pinch point at the culvert is only further documenting the fact that some of the runoff from the existing properties and some of the additions on some of those additional properties and illegal discharges off of some of those properties coming into the stream at that point is causing flooding on the McDonald property. I would not say that a 100% vacant lot is causing flooding on the McDonald property. No.
you're familiar with the definitions in the ordinance of the floodplain area?
Sure.
Okay, and I'll just refer to the last clause following the semicolon, and I'll quote it.
Can you read the full?
Sure, I can do that. A relatively flat or lowland area which is subject to partial or complete inundation from an adjoining or nearby stream, river, or watercourse, and/or any area subject to the unusual and rapid accumulation of surface waters from any source.
Okay.
So did you take into account all sources of water runoff that would be impacted by the post-development runoff on the flag lot?
Sure. Yes.
And do you have an opinion whether that surface water runoff will be greater or less or slight in some measurement?
I think there's important clarification to make that we are not building in the floodplain. And that is an important clarification. You cited a floodplain definition. We are not building in the floodplain. And in an earlier testimony, I did further testify that we are providing over and beyond the stormwater management, and that is rate, volume, and water quality, 200 times the ordinance requirement. So I would say in the post-development condition, we are going to be an improvement on the conditions on this site, or at least to the maximum ability that we have, given the limited area we have for development.
All right, let's focus on the base flood elevation as plotted on the applicant's plans of record. And I believe it's plotted at elevation 88.5. Is that correct?
88.
88. And I think it's the zoning plan and the URSUM plan, I believe.
This one works.
URSUM plan we have, we're referring to as the URSAM plan.
Exhibit A4.
A4.
Yeah.
It's yellow, pink, 2 shades of blue.
So Justin, in fact, your plotting of the BFE, you understand, that's the base flood elevation, is just below the proposed new house location, correct?
Correct.
And you actually redesigned the configuration of the proposed house to ostensibly have the house above the BFE, correct?
Correct.
The applicant's plans of record, including the zoning plan and the URSAM plan, were plotted graphically, including the BFE. Correct?
Incorrect. It was plotted based on a field survey with field data and referenced in FEMA mapping. So yes, it's all based on field data, not by graphical representation.
Well, describe what is meant by the words graphically plotting or plotting graphically. What is that?
Graphical plotting is there's a plan in front of you, which I know you're going to reference as an exhibit. So graphical plotting means that they take a rough approximation of where the line hits the property and sketch it in on a plan. That this is done basically with conceptual planning, and when there's not this is a zone AE floodplain, which we'll get into in a minute, but that means that there is a base flood elevation assigned to it. So until you understand where that elevation hits the property, you don't know where the floodplain is. It's the same reason why when you have a house located in an approximate floodplain, the insurance company asks you to hire a surveyor to go out and shoot the property to find out if the first floor is located above that base flood elevation.
So you'd agree it's critical to accurately depict the BFE elevation.
Yes, sir.
And did you refer to any documents to support the BFE calculation and delineation you made on these exhibits?
Yes, we did.
And is the general note 1 on exhibit, the zoning plan exhibit A4, is that referring to the Alta survey?
Yes, it is.
So it's fair to say that your zoning plan and your determination of the elevation BFE at 88 was based upon the Alta survey.
That's correct.
And that's exhibit A7, I believe.
That is correct. Survey by Fortified Services.
Would you agree that the FEMA map, you know what I mean by the FEMA map?
The firm map, yes.
Yeah, the firm map shows the floodplain at the current Bassinger house above the flag lot.
The FEMA map is based off of graphical plotting purposes. So that is based off of a GIS ortho grid plotting. It's an ortho photo, which only has 5-foot contours.
Before you go any further, translate that into.
So the field survey that we conducted is based off of real life data. There was a field survey confirmed. Everything on that plan is accurate within 1/100th of a foot. So that elevation is then translated and confirmed with a FEMA map, which says the base flood elevation of the profile along that section is 88. So that where the 88 contour hits our property is where that FEMA floodplain is.
But Mr. Fenningham asked you a question about whether the same level of detail applied to the house.
I believe his
And
question
its
was
relationship to the firm.
correct. So the firm map shows that 88 or that floodplain extending further than what we show it because it's based on a less accurate graphical representation, not on a field survey. So you take that as a reference, and then you apply the field survey as to where that hits the profile.
But do you agree that your zoning plan indicates that no field surveying was performed in connection with your BFE determination?
Where is that noted?
Note 32. Let me read the last sentence of note 32. No field surveying was performed to determine the zone, and an elevation certificate may be needed to verify this determination or apply for a variance from the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Sorry, can we just direct what plan has note 32 that you're reading from?
Zoning plan A4. See, there's two documents that are A4, the zoning plan and the URSAM plan. So I'm referring to the zoning plan, identified as such in the legend.
And what did you read exactly again?
Note 32.
That's a typo on the plan. Mr. Fenningham already noted note number 1, which says this plan has been based on a reference of a field Alta survey.
Well,
So-
objection, because what I'm reading as Exhibit A4 does not say that under note 32. Mine says by graphic plotting only. This property is in zone quote AE.
Well, Barbara, that's consistent. I read the last sentence, but it starts with by graphic plotting only. Which is I was turning back to, but you
I
jumped
see
ahead of
what
me.
you're Okay, so it's the last sentence of note 32.
And I was going to come back to the beginning of that note.
Want to clarify so I know what's going on.
It's a plan error. It's note 1 should proceed. This is based off a, and that's on me. That's a plan error. It's not based on graphical plotting. It's based on a survey, and the survey has already been noted and accepted as Exhibit A7, I believe, which shows the FEMA line based not on graphical plotting, but based on a field survey.
All right, if you could turn to A7. And folks, in the bottom left corner of the Exhibit A7 is another note disclaimer. This is the Alta survey document. It's a survey plan.
It's designated in the box at the bottom right, survey colon Alta / NSPS land title survey.
Can I just read it aloud for the record? This is the flood note in bold at the left corner of the Exhibit A7. It is the Alta survey that Justin said was the foundation for the zoning plan. This note says, by graphic plotting only, this property is partially in Zone AE, Zone X, parens, shaded end parens, and X, unshaded in parens, of the flood insurance rate map, refers to the FEMA map number, which bears an effective date of July 16, 2004, and is not in a special flood hazard area. As shown on the FEMA website, it gives a website reference, by Fermat, created on July 16, 2004, we have learned this community does currently participate in the program, meaning the township participates in the FEMA mapping for development purposes. So this is a disclaimer consistent with note 32. So are there two plans with two errors, or was this only done by graphic plotting?
2 plans, 2 errors. It's a general note that's common to a lot of engineering and survey plans. So if it was by graphical purposes only, that map would match the plan you have in front of you, the firm map, which shows the whole property located into the floodplain.
But if there's errors on the plan that you submitted and sealed, how confident can the board be that with the accuracy of the plotting of the BFE and the floodplain area itself? Well, I'll move on then. If the floodplain is in question, and I'm asking the question, so I'm putting it into question, and you put a house within the floodplain, isn't that like putting the house in a body of water that will cause the water to rise? That's a question. Yeah.
Could you say it one more time? I didn't hear the last part.
So if the floodplain area, if the house location is proposed in the plans before the board is a location within the floodplain, is it like putting the house in a body of water that will then cause the body of water to rise or to accelerate the flow of surface water as a result of the post-development status?
So can I just ask for a clarification? Because I want to make sure we're not missing terms. You're talking specifically a floodplain, not a wetland buffer, not a floodplain soil, but the floodplain.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Barbara.
There's more to it, but you're saying if the house was built in a floodplain with no other grading or any other balancing, cut fill balancing, would it cause the floodplain to rise? And the answer would be possibly, yes.
It's like stepping into a bathtub. When a body steps into the bathtub, the water rises.
Depends on the size of the bathtub, correct.
Understood. And will the location of the proposed house result in surface water flowing around the structure at an increased velocity?
We're talking about two. You're saying implying that the house is located in the floodplain.
I didn't add that. I'm just saying, if I understand all the site improvements you proposed, but my premise is that the rain garden is above the location of the house. There will be surface water. It's a question. There will be surface water running toward the house, not collected in the rain garden.
The bottom of the rain garden is obviously going to be located lower than the house, so water can be conveyed to it.
How deep is the rain garden as proposed?
About a foot deep.
Did you do any studies to model the flow of water and to see what happens to the flow toward the adjoining downstream properties?
Surface water or groundwater?
Surface water.
That's what we propose is a stormwater management system that returns this to existing conditions or not, or better. That's the point of a stormwater design.
Let me explain why I'm asking a question. In your testimony on June 15, you testified that the proposed surface water improvements would collect the water on site.
Correct.
And I'm just seeking to understand whether that's going to result in no surface water flowing off-site to any other adjoining properties.
Grab the microphone.
Collect water on site. What water are we talking about you collecting before it is conveyed to the stream?
It's important. So the water that we are collecting is the water from the new impervious off of the structure of the roof that is going to be captured into a rain garden, treated for rate, volume, and water quality before being conveyed downstream, anything that does not infiltrate into the ground.
Is there another body of surface water that you're not addressing? In other words, there's natural rainfall. There's surface water flow existing now through the vacant lot.
Correct.
So is it, I'm asking again in a sense, and I just want to make my question clearer if I can do that. Are you saying there will be no surface water runoff off of the flag lot toward the downstream properties, particularly the McDonald's property? Is that your testimony?
Correct. There's existing runoff occurring off of the property today. We are, as a new developer on an existing piece of land, tasked with taking the new impervious and returning the site from pre to post into pre-existing conditions or to the conditions required by the township ordinance, which we are exceeding by 200%. So my testimony is that we are meeting the township ordinance and improving the situation by 200%. So there is surface runoff occurring on that property naturally. That property is a naturally occurring grass area which conveys water to the stream, to your client's property, which gets there through a stream, through an existing easement. There is going to be surface water that is existing today that is going to continue to get to that stream at a lesser rate and volume than was required by code as part of our application. So we are not collecting all the water that is flowing off of that property, capturing it. There is going to still be a conveyance into that property, which is permitted because it exists. And we're not going to be increasing or in other ways, increasing a rate or volume to that stream, to that property.
But what if, and this is a hypothetical, what if the floodplain is not as you depicted it on your plan?
I'm confident that it is.
Let me finish my question, please. And the FEMA mapping of the BFE is up at the Bassinger existing home. What impact will that level of water have on the proposed site improvements? Will they be underwater?
I have to agree with Mr. Murphy. What if?
There's enough documentation which I can outline for you to prove that the floodplain that we show on the plan is accurate and based on publicly available FEMA floodplain based on a field survey dropped into CAD and 100% accurate.
The flood elevations that you pulled off of the FEMA is based on study points, correct?
Study points and based on a georeferenced cross-section dropped into AutoCAD, measured distances. It's much more precise than you can get from any publicly available FEMA flood map that shows it at a,
And there are several study points along the stream.
Actually, cross-section V, which is a cross-section along this study point, goes directly through our house, our proposed house. So it's a very, in all situations, it's a very easy calculation considering where it falls on the property.
And you based your flood elevation off of the study point of that cross-section that you just mentioned.
That's correct.
I'll have Mr. Fioravanti address that also for your benefit. I believe you testified on June 15 that your proposal, the proposed plan is within the small project exemption of the township ordinance.
Correct.
And did you measure post-development excess runoff onto the McDonald's property?
Can you explain that further?
Well, I'll refer you to 200-56B. Let me just for a minute.
Ordinance.
With regard to floodplain technical provisions, there is a subsection 56C2.
Did you say floodplain provisions?
Yes.
Why are we looking at floodplain provisions if we're not in the floodplain?
Well, I'm leading up to the question that I believe you are in the floodplain, but
Well, there's nothing I'm going to be able to answer if we're not in the floodplain.
but this subsection addresses drainage facilities. Sure. Let's read the highlighted
All right,
portion.
I'm going to read the full thing. So it's under a floodplain if we come back, because I think this is a very important point of clarification that is located within the floodplain ordinance, floodplain technical provisions, which are only applicable if there is an encroachment into the floodplain, which we do not have. So Mr. Benningham is referencing a section that is C2, 256C2, which says drainage features. Storm drainage features shall be designed to convey the flow of runoff in a safe and efficient manner. The system shall provide proper drainage along streets and provide positive drainage away from buildings. The system shall be designed to prevent the discharge of excess runoff onto adjacent properties. Now, if everyone on this board is aware, these floodplain provisions only come into play as if you're developing within the floodplain. So these are not applicable to this project because we are not located within a floodplain, and we are exceeding the stormwater requirements applicable to us by 200%.
It will hinge on whether where the BFE is, whether it's within the floodplain or not. That's what I'm drawing attention to. Barbara asked you questions about the requirement of a 100-foot buffer versus the depiction of a 50-foot buffer. But just to be clear, the applicant is not seeking variance relief to allow a 50-foot buffer.
Correct.
So all that testimony on June 15 and your answers to Barbara's questions were posited on if the zoning board allows a 50-foot buffer versus the required 100-foot buffer.
On June 15th, if I recall correctly, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, the purpose of that testimony was to say the ordinance is very subjective when it comes to 100 versus 75 versus 50 based on the existing vegetation on site. So this were to say, if we were to apply the criteria for a 100-foot buffer, which subjectively there has been some discussion that we may apply, that we may be applicable for, the structure itself would not even require a wetland buffer variance because it would not be located within the buffer. If I recall correctly, that was the intent.
But I also recall that you testified that you have not prepared a landscape plan as such, as yet.
We prepared a stormwater plan showing additional plantings. When I say landscape plan, we didn't identify species, spacing, and the like, but we did commit to a certain amount of plantings, deciduous and evergreen, to satisfy the stormwater requirement.
But to follow up Barbara's questions, do you agree that there's existing mature trees with extended root coverage on the flag lot currently?
Correct.
And those trees will be taken down to allow for the construction of the new home as located on the plan?
Within the tolerances of the ordinance, correct. And replacement trees will be added.
And those mature trees are in a cluster configuration. There's trees within a smaller area that are aligned and along the common lot line with the McDonald's. Would you agree with that?
As much as you can cluster within 18 feet, correct. That's the width of the flag lot right now. It's about an 18-foot wide slot of land.
No, that's the flagpole. I'm referring to the flag lot.
So where on the flag lot are you? There's a few trees within the vicinity of the house, 14-inch trees. I would not say that they are substantial trees. And again, we are allowed disturbance of trees. We're well under the woodland disturbance, even though this doesn't qualify because it's less than a quarter acre of trees. But we are providing replacement trees to that benefit.
Would you agree that the cluster of trees that's there now, opposite the pool area on the McDonald's property, are in an approximate size and height of 30 to 40 feet?
Approximate.
And the replacement plantings will be arborvitae or sapling trees?
To be determined.
And have you done an analysis of the water absorption of the replacement trees versus the existing mature trees?
We use the township approved standard for what is allowable for stormwater for replacement trees. So yes. There's a spreadsheet available from the township, from the zoning officer, which we used.
And taking the line of questioning further, the delineation of the buffer areas that Barbara asked you about, that is also dependent upon an accurate BFE determination. Would you agree?
No, buffer areas are based on wetlands. The wetlands were field delineated and based on a survey. So the buffers shown on the plans are accurate.
Well, let me ask it this way. So if there's no buffer in a floodplain area,
Because the floodplain counts more than the buffer.
correct? That's all the questions I have.
Any redirect?
Justin, let's go back and so no misunderstanding about conflicting notes on the plans that Mr. Benningham made reference and which he previously highlighted in the materials that he submitted last week to the board. So we were aware from his annotated submission that he had highlighted those inconsistencies, right?
Correct.
So there's no misunderstanding, and notwithstanding those notes, which you acknowledge
Are typos.
were incorrect, all the information that you have submitted with your application to the board as it relates to the delineation of every natural resource on this property, be it floodplain, wetlands, the buffer, et cetera, are all based on field. The foundation is an actual field survey.
Correct.
And we will talk about, let's talk about briefly the buffer.
Okay.
Our plans presumed that the buffer adjacent to the wetlands would be 100 feet, right?
Correct.
And even though we know from our past experience that there could be, depending on the subjective standards and how they would be applied, there could be a reduction in that buffer.
That's correct.
We made no assumption in the submission of our plans that any reduction in that buffer would be granted.
Correct.
So that our plans contemplate the full 100-foot wetland buffer, and to demonstrate that there would only be little, if any, building envelope available if that 100-foot buffer would be applied.
That's correct.
Let's talk about FEMA. All right. You are familiar with the floodplain management requirements as published by FEMA
That's correct.
and as they would be applied to municipal members of FEMA that take advantage of that and regulate floodplains in their own individual municipalities, right?
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe for the board and the audience the hierarchy of information and the specificity of that information that should or can be relied upon by municipal floodplain managers as well as applicants who own properties in the floodplain?
Sure. So the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, publishes floodplain management requirements. It's part of FEMA. It's regulated, and this is what all township municipalities reference as a form of determining where the floodplain hits on their property. There is an order of magnitude, an order of preference, and an order of accuracy that comes with floodplain delineations. The least of most. So if I were to reference this document, which we can make an exhibit if so necessary.
We will introduce this as, and I'll provide additional copies of the excerpt that we're talking about.
So
FEMA regulations.
FEMA regulates a floodplain. This is in zone AE, which means it's a studied stream. There's base flood elevations known along that stream, which we will get into in a minute. I know it's a little more technical than we probably want to get into, but there is known elevations along the stream, which you can pull off and determine at a single property along that stream, what is the base flood elevation. Now, the least most accurate is the FEMA flood firm map that is available publicly. It just shows a graphical representation. It just shows it on an aerial, and it is
That is the least accurate.
the least accurate. Now, I will
FEMA acknowledges that in its printed materials, that
sure.
its own information is a graphical representation and as a result, potentially is the least accurate.
Sure. So in Unit 4 of this document saying using NFIP studies and maps, it says due to the limited detail and large scale of base flood maps used for most firms, which is a flood insurance rate map, much interpolation between contour lines is done in mapping floodplain boundaries. This is why you may find discrepancies when actual ground elevations are surveyed. The maps are just the best available graphical representations of base flood elevations. Here is the order of preference for identifying a base flood elevation at a particular location. The most accurate base flood elevation are found in the floodway data table.
What is that?
That is, it lists it by cross section. And it says, instead of reading off of a graph, it tells you exactly what the elevation is at a certain cross section. Sorry.
Want me to repeat that?
Yeah.
My objection is based on the definition of the floodplain, identified floodplain area in section 200-53 of the township's ordinance. And in that definition is the reference to FEMA's flood insurance rate maps and flood insurance study. And I would go on to say that those mappings are also within other definitions, including the special flood hazard area, the AE zone, and in regard to the use of references to floodplain area, floodway, and references to base flood elevations throughout your ordinance. So the scope of the ordinance, unless there's a challenge to the ordinance by this testimony that you shouldn't be looking at this, you should be looking at something else. That's why I object to this testimony and the production or introduction of that exhibit.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Sure.
I live on Deer Path Lane. I'm downstream from this property. When I developed my lot at that point in time, we did not rely on the FEMA flood maps because they are not accurate. I had a professional survey come out to actually do the physical contour lines as they exist from a survey. So the FEMA maps are used as a reference point only. And if you have an existing property, after FEMA maps have changed, then you have to get a survey done. And then you put an exemption into the flood map, which my property has, as will this. I mean, once they do the accurate surveying, then this flood map issue goes away. The other question too I have, you represent the McDonald property? Okay. So that McDonald property is 46 feet away from the stream, correct? It's 46 feet away from the stream. The house is 46 feet away from the stream. So that is currently in a floodplain. So if that property was trying to be developed today, would that house be able to be built? No. Are you allowed to build in a floodplain? No, you're not. So that house would not be built today. So they're benefiting from a grandfather situation, correct? Right, it's grandfathered in, but that house would not be able to be built today.
Microphone.
I will to their point of being a challenge to the ordinance. It's no challenge. It's just as Mr. Tritt said, it's just a more accurate way of interpreting the firm map. The firm map takes it at a 10,000 foot level, looking down on an aerial. As you get into a studied stream, you start looking at, and we have other exhibits, a flood profile, which can accurately depict, based on the site of the plan, the elevation of the base flood at any given at every given point along that stream. So it is not a challenge to the ordinance. It's just saying the firm map is available to you. Use it as a reference, but you need to take it one step further. If you want to know exactly where that base flood elevation hits your property, it's going to be based on a data table and it's going to be based on a profile. If those two are not available to you, the least accurate available to you is just the FEMA firm map.
Can you refresh my memory on the date of that study?
Yes, I do.
And we had shared it with Mr. Majewski. We'll share it with everyone else. He had it on the screen. But
It is the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, floodplain management requirements.
No. The study associated with.
Oh, the actual, our stream section?
Correct.
1 second.
You said it earlier. I can't remember. I'm just.
And the flood section, it's at 252P. I don't believe it actually. I think it is the, let's see here. 32. March 16th, 2015. I'm sorry. There you go. Thank you. That's the date of the FEMA map that is shown on the plan. That is the latest map change for FEMA.
So we are relying upon for this application, the most accurate information that you were able to obtain via the on-site field survey and the March 2015 FEMA study to, as accurately as possible, identify the base flood elevation on these plans?
Correct.
And in anticipation of this issue being raised, you've prepared an additional exhibit, have you not?
We have.
All right, and we're going to mark that, Mr. Flager, as Exhibit A.
Well, if you're marking the FEMA,
We'll mark that. The
That would be
floodplain management requirements is A12.
that would be A13, and then this would be A14.
Justin, please hand that Exhibit A14 out. Give one to Mr. Fenning here. Yep. Mhm. Go ahead. Yep. Could you please describe for the benefit of the board and the audience what A14 represents and how you prepared it?
A14 is a flood profile for the associated Fema map for this stream.
What does that mean?
So the stream itself has been studied by FEMA, and they came up with along the stream elevations of the stream and then the associated floodplain elevation, which is the base flood
That's the
elevation.
March 2015 study to which you made reference a few minutes ago?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So if you were to look at the associated firm map, our property, the cross section V goes right through our property.
V as in Victor.
V as in Victor. V has a base flood elevation labeled on the plan of 88.1 directly in the middle of the property. So the surveyor record took that map, look at the contours, and 88 is the flood hazard area. So what we did today, to be ultra conservative, looking at a worst case scenario and looking at the most upstream point of that plan where our structure is. And we said, all right, if we look at this flood profile and apply the most conservative approach, saying that the building itself at the northernmost or upstreammost point is 42.5 feet off of the cross section V, which we dropped in. It's geo-referenced. It's based on state plane coordinates. It's 100% accurate. That it's 42.5 feet away. The maximum that we could justify on this property of a base flood elevation would be 88.2. So we looked at the associated contours around the property, and the building, again, applying the worst case scenario, is still outside the floodplain at 88.2 if we're going to tenths. And that is, I have another exhibit which we prepared showing a offset and where the 88.2 contour hits the property.
Mark that as Exhibit A15.
Showing that at the most conservative approach, which is again more conservative than our survey, the structure itself is still located outside of the floodplain.
Mr. Murphy, what is 815 titled?
Let me see it and then we'll decide. Justin, what are we going to call Exhibit A15?
Call this a cross-sectional exhibit, cross-sectional floodplain exhibit. So this shows cross-section V is the red line cutting through the center of the building. And what you see is a 42.5 dimension to the top. It's at this point, the bottom of the plan, showing the northernmost or the upstreammost point. And at that point, the structure That's where we're saying at the most conservative approach, we're 88.2. And if you guys can see, we offset, and we just did an offset of the 82 contour based on an elevation that was field surveyed. And that 88.2 contour does not strike the house, which means the house is still located outside the flood hazard area and still outside the floodplain. This is just taking it one step further to just make sure that we are bulletproof in saying that we are not building within the floodplain. That was the point of the original exercise. The first application we submitted showed the house in the floodplain. Hearing the neighbor concerns, we reduced the size of the footprint, pulled it entirely outside of the floodplain, and are building on what is really the minimum amount area available to that site.
I don't have any other questions for Mr. Giannotti.
Anybody have anything here? Do you have another? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Justin, would you describe in greater detail what site survey work was actually done at the premises, at the property?
Originally, it was a full boundary location and topographic survey conducted.
Who performed that?
Fortified Services, professional land surveyor.
And that reference is in note 1?
That is the reference of note 1.
And that's the company that prepared the Alta Survey A7?
That's correct.
And that's what you're referring to as depicting the field survey results?
Correct. That is what's being used as the basis of our plans. Correct.
Okay, that's all.
You got any questions so far? You have further testimony, expert?
I do. I have Mr. Fioravanti to present.
Barb, do you have anything to add a question to this point?
Mr. Giannotti? No.
Just to remind,
Testimony, I'll move the remaining exhibits of Mr. Giannotti that we discussed.
mhm. Yeah, don't forget your mic. I'm sorry, Ed.
I do have one quick question, actually, of Mr. Flagger. Prior to the June 15th date, Mr. Murphy circulated a series of 10 different exhibits. 2 of them were plans labeled unencumbered lot area number 1 and unencumbered lot area number 2. They were never admitted or submitted at the last hearing, were they?
I don't have anything labeled that. I mean, I could tell you what I have as our exhibits. I mean, we have application is A1, the reasons for the request of relief is A2. The impervious surface breakdown calculations and the stormwater management controls is A3. The zoning and URSAM plans are A4. The wetland, floodplain, landscape, stormwater plans are A5. Justin CV is A6. The survey plan, I think that's dated January 20th, 21, is A7. The original plans and revised plans comparison and floodplain exhibits is A8. The wetland plans, which has the old versus the new ones, A9, stormwater exhibit A10, stormwater conveyance.
I had alternate wetland plan as exhibit A10.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
And
think
then
I might-
11 was stormwater and landscape.
I think yeah, and the conveyance, I think, and routing, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Right. We definitely provided testimony on unencumbered lot area exhibit, both of them.
You did provide testimony,
Yeah.
but the actual plans weren't introduced. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing
We'll
anything.
mark them as exhibit A 16 and 17, just to make sure.
Okay.
All right.
That's fine.
I'm sure we have some further
And
testimony.
then I would still move the remaining exhibits that were discussed and marked this evening, and we would rest.
Any objection to the exhibits? I know you had an objection to the FEMA regs, but I don't. Correct, but I don't think that's just stating, I don't think that's a valid objection. You can have cross-examination on that issue and you can have your expert testify, but the FEMA regs are the FEMA regs. I don't think there's anything objectionable to their introduction as an exhibit.
All right, that being said, there's further testimony. Remember to remind everybody, we have a curfew at 10 o'clock. I like to say we. All right, we're going to accept the exhibits. What are the exhibits? A1 through A17 who are accepted as exhibits.
Thank you. I think Mr. Fenningham just indicated that he's likely to go well beyond the clock.
We're not 10 o'clock.
So does it make sense, if I may, for any residents who are here that did not have an opportunity at the June 15th hearing, maybe you could take their comments?
If we can do that
It's out of
now
order.
instead of you going further. Just-
You need the microphone. You have to repeat it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
So I also would ask, I would indicate that I have more than 20 minutes of testimony for Mr. Fioravanti, the McDonald's expert, who was
Okay.
retained after June 15, and also Mr. McDonald to testify at the next hearing date.
That's fine.
So
That's
if the-
fine. So
if
we
the
could use the
board's-
rest of the time tonight for public comment.
Sure, I'll
If
concede
your-
to that.
If your testimony is going to go further, and it sounds like it is.
Right.
And you're expert. So if we want to do that, if anybody has any objection to that, all right, then guess I'm asking for any public comment in here that wants to come up one at a time. You have to be sworn in, state. You can move the mic. Yeah, put it there, stand at the stand for the public comment. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi,
State your
how you
name and
doing?
address.
Ben Batiste, Lakeshore Drive. Batiste, Battiste. Benjamin. I do. Thank you. Ben Batiste, Lakeshore Drive, also the Vice President of the Makefield Lakes Community Association, MLCA, which I'll refer to moving forward. That represents 90+ households on and around Silver Lake with an obvious vested interest in the lake's long-term health. And we'd like to ask the zoning board to deny this project in its entirety, and at minimum disallow the variance request to lessen the wetland buffer requirements or to be built on the wetland buffer. I'd also like to request party status if possible, not only for myself, but for the association. Over time, I've been at my address for 12+ years. Over first few years, obviously storms would bring a lot of water into the lake. The lake levels would rise, muck would fill up the lake banks would erode. It's becoming worse and worse over the last 5 years. We seem to be getting more high intake storms, kind of overflowing the area. It's been insinuated or alluded to by a few gentlemen up here tonight that the lake is the stream is in distress. It's already in distress. So I'm not sure how lessening the wetland buffer from 100 to 50 feet would help that, and also putting a structure in that area. I'd also, and I of course, out of fairness, would not just blame this property for, eliminating the lake from the community. It's obviously a bunch of different factors, but there is no benefit whatsoever of building on this property in terms of the lake's health. Okay, obviously, as this stream fills up and the speed of the water increases, it brings more debris, more muck. It erodes the banks not only of the stream, but then it comes into the lake, which widens it out, and it lowers the bed of the lake. So obviously, it fills up and it goes over the banks. So long term, it's a problem for us.
So in your opinion, this project, and I'm not saying either way, of course, is if it was to be built, it would be detrimental to the stream, especially reducing the buffer from 100 to 50 feet. or reducing to 50 feet. But if you kept it at 100 feet, he can't do nothing with the property.
I would agree with that.
And we have to, everybody has to consider something along those lines too.
Agreed.
Do you agree that the plan that Mr. Giannotti developed and went over, it does sound there was a lot of testimony there. I would consider that a pretty good plan. It does, do you agree that it would reduce or at least would not add to the water to the stream?
I don't know if I agree with it. I'm not an engineer, but yeah, obviously 100 feet and then cutting that in half to 50 feet and building on 22% of that 100-foot wetland buffer. You know, it just doesn't seem logical that all that water, and I know it's this rain garden is built to absorb the majority of that water, but still it's going to pool, it's going to fill up in other areas and increase the speed going down, which yeah, you could put plants and you could put trees there as well, but you know, it sounds good, but we all know how water works.
Is it your opinion that properties that border the stream that currently mow and have grass going to that would be the benefit to the stream would be to plant vegetation along the stream
Absolutely.
waterway on those current properties that currently mow to,
With the right vegetation, absolutely.
and that would help to increase the quality of the water going down to the lake.
It would prevent too much water going down and bringing in obviously yard waste and debris, and that would eventually ends up in the lake and fills it up.
Okay, so you want to see more vegetation planted along the stream.
Absolutely. I'd love to see it up and down that stream, you know, not just this property, but every property. So,
That sounds like a good idea there.
Yeah.
See if you can get
easier
that
said than
done.
done. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate
Do you want to say
Any
anything?
objection to the party status?
Microphone. He's waving.
I can't.
Yes, I would object to the request for the Makefield Lakes Association to have party status. I don't know this gentleman where he lives in relation to the property and whether he would himself qualify for party status. But clearly, the association doesn't have the direct, immediate, and pecuniary interest to qualify as.
Did you receive notice as part of this in your individual capacity at your property?
Indirectly,
Not directly.
not directly.
Okay. And
But
where
I
do you-
feel I should have been notified
where,
directly,
where,
obviously.
where do you live in relationship? to that?
So I live on the lower lake, which the upper lake then spills into.
Okay.
And I live on the lake.
So does he qualify for party status himself?
Not automatically, meaning he's not,
My objection for the record, I'm not looking to belabor it.
No, I got.
So does the no party status
Not
include
at this point.
enough for the association?
No.
All right, thank you.
Come on up. Introduce yourself, name, address.
you want to have him offer testimony about how he would be individually affected, you could certainly do that if you would require more information to make that determination. As well as if he's an officer of the organization, he certainly could do that as well.
Can he do it as an officer for the whole organization? So if he does party, if he had party status, that means the organization has party status.
No. Two separate. He's asking for it individually for his own property
Okay.
and on behalf of the organization, which he is a vice president of. So, whether potentially has the authority to act on the behalf of the organization.
Is there anybody else here from the organization?
If I may, I believe our township code is very specific as to the requirements of who has to be notified of a pending application. And that distance is being used as a determination of who will be adversely affected.
That's correct.
And that would be a basis for making a determination of party status. I mean, I'll defer to Mr. Flager's advice to this board, But generally, people outside that scope are not usually granted party status in applications.
What is that radius?
I think it's 400 feet. Mr. Majewski? Yeah, I knew.
I thought it was 300, but I could be wrong.
Obviously, we just had a one not too long ago on the basis of party status, and you can, being within that kind of gives you automatic party status. Outside of that distance, you would again have to show that it
Right, and Mr.
Different
correct.
than that
So you
of
have
the
to
oth-
show that
other
it
common
affects your
citizen.
property, as Barb and Mr. Murphy alluded to. Meaning it couldn't just be, I live in the area, or I live, you'd have to show that it affects your property.
If I may, Mr. Flager, our ordinance only requires the properties that adjoin the property in question be notified. However, the township, as a matter of just course, have notified everyone within 300 feet for the last 20 years or more. And then, like you said, then it would be up to the zoning hearing board to determine whether they think there's some other reason why they should be granted party status.
And I could be stepping out here a little bit, but I believe he was saying that it does have an impact on his stream impacts do impact his property because he's downstream and on water.
He's still out of the area, though, right? He's still out of the.
We went through this before, and I think it's what Adam's talking to. If we can show that he has an impact to his property, but may or may not be the case here, doesn't have to be within that range if there's an impact that's specific to his property.
If I may, it would have to be different than that which would affect other residents. So it's not a general common type of impact, but a very specific impact to that individual alone.
Well, it can be shared by more than one person, meaning if it affected everyone in the township the exact same way, then you would not have it. If it's a group of people, meaning people that live along a stream compared to everyone that lives, in the neighborhood, that's a different determination.
You have to come up to the mic again if you're going to ask a question. I mean, I would think that everybody, like you said, everybody would have to be, if everybody's affected, like he's alluding to.
It's limited to the class of people that would be on the stream, I think is what he's asking for, not everybody in a general sense of everybody.
Well,
I think he can only ask for himself.
He can only ask for himself, yeah.
I'm asking as an officer of the association for the association, including all of our members who have lakefront properties who would be affected by any stream or creek changes that could affect our properties, since the lake is our greatest resource for our property
I
values.
think you need to explain that explain your relationship to of what the community association's responsibilities are with regard to the lake in order to establish that they would have an impact to the lake itself.
Okay, so as an association, we are bound and required because of dues to maintain the lake, which includes in the past has included dredging the lake, working with different storm management options. We've also planted vegetation along the banks to try to impact or positively impact the erosion. We've done a lot of dam work, for upper and lower dam of both of those lakes. We've taken down and cleared trees from the stream. You name it. We try to keep it healthy as much as possible.
How many
So
members are there?
there's about 90 plus households.
And are you elected?
Yes.
All the officers are elected?
Yeah. Every other year we have officer elections.
Do you think your properties would be affected any different than any of the other people in the?
Those on the lake, absolutely. Those off the lake, not as much, although property values in the neighborhood and, it's a huge selling point. Ask any realtor on Silver Lake. So
You live, your
I live on
property
the lake.
itself, you're on the lake.
I'm on the lake.
You're downstream?
Yes.
Okay.
Are all the members of the Holland Association Are all of the members of the association on the lake?
They're not all on the lake, no. No, we have many members that are not on the lake that, pay dues, just they're at activities, they boat on the lake, they fish, they stuff like that. So,
But the association has financial responsibilities for
Right.
maintaining the lake, which
right.
would be the financial impact.
Did you have any type of meeting and vote on this in order to be authorized to make that, meaning a vote to
I can
oppose
submit
this
minutes
application,
if,
something like that?
yeah, I could submit minutes if that works for you. I don't have them on me right here, but yes, we have monthly meetings. We have an annual meeting that's held right in this room.
In a meeting that was held, there was a vote to oppose this application?
There was not.
Okay.
No. Authorized by who?
By the association?
Authorized by this, as an officer, we're making that decision on the, on our own accord. Yeah, we have not run it by the members. We could,
Run it by the members.
but we're elected, just like any elected officer is making
I'm not saying
decisions
you-
for the,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you eventually can't, but I'm
Right.
saying without that type of formal action,
Good.
I think it's problematic.
So what?
I'm not, again, I'm not saying that your organization would not, if you, I'm not saying you can never do it, but I'm saying without that formal action taking place, I think it's hard to have an officer then take that type of action without.
an officer that's voted in by.
What are the officer's duties? As vice president, what are your duties?
So the duties vary. I mean, we kind of share a lot of the duties. We have, typical president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. We focus on, social events, lake maintenance. Treasurer obviously deals with the finances. Secretary takes the minutes, and, we have, little subcommittees of engineering and lake cleanup. And, we're dealing with, signage and things like that.
Are you authorized to make decisions on behalf of the association? And if so,
As a voted officer, I
As an
believe I am.
okay, what's the basis of that belief?
The members approve and vote on the officers.
But why the vice president and not the president?
Well, the president was at the last meeting, and this
Correct,
is something that
and
we
that's
discussed.
Howard Hunter?
Yeah.
Okay, I think.
It's just something that we discussed in between, had we discussed it earlier, he might have asked for, I have a text. Mind if I?
He made comment. I don't know that he ever requested party status, but.
Yeah, I don't believe he did.
I think it would be up to the president, or if the president, I get that he's not here, but, and the vice president, when the president's not there, has the ability to make certain determinations, but I think there needs to be a little bit more to do that. I think individually, it would be fine as someone that lives downstream on the lake, but I think there needs to be a little bit more to authorize you to do that on behalf of the organization.
Fair enough.
And I don't want to belabor it, and I don't want to count. But he admitted that he has no authority to be here on behalf of the MLA to oppose the application because the MLA hasn't yet voted to oppose it. So it may be tactical. He may come back next month with authorization to do it.
I don't agree that I don't have authority. And
Yeah,
I
but you
don't
can
believe
get
that
it.
we need to have every member of our organization vote on it, as an officer, just, you're all board members. We don't all have a
And
say how
I don't even
how
think
you
your
guys
entire
vote. So.
organization needs to vote on it. I think your board could vote on it, but
Okay.
depending on how your structure is organized.
Your bylaws, how you set up your association. And you're gonna come back to the next meeting. Let's do something there at your meeting, your board members or whatever your bylaws say. And then we'll come back. We're not gonna be done tonight.
Fair enough.
And then we'll look at it again.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right?
guys.
But I think it should be fair, and then we'll see where we're at.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, you got 2 minutes.
I'll make it. My name is David Rogers. I'm at 825 Edgewood Road. I do. I've been a resident of 825 Edgewood Road for just over 30 years now, and I have been watching the creek, which is about 150 feet from my driveway, severely deteriorating. I've watched the trees fall into it. Every time we have a storm, that thing floods. We have, my backyard becomes a marsh. I'm very concerned that any additional development of property upstream from that is just going to make the situation worse. I've had to, I suspect that my property would probably have not been built where it is, now that I've seen some of these FEMA maps. You know, when it was built, I think it was built in 1964, if I remember correctly. When we have a severe rainstorm, the water just pours through my backyard and my side yard. It's gotten consistently worse over the last 30 years. Especially when you have, you know, heavy rains. And that's what I'm more concerned with. You know, I heard, you know, a lot of technical stuff tonight, and I'm no engineer, but I do know that when, you know, this last rain that we just had a week or so ago, I should have taken pictures of it. I literally had a river running through my backyard, which is probably no more than 300 feet from this property. And I'm very concerned with that. So all of those kinds of things are just not right. So I would like to also request party status on this 825 Edgewood Road. I did not, and I don't know how I could not. Probably not more than 400 feet. It's a half a block walking up Woodland. Probably just outside of it.
Do you live on the stream as well? On that side of the street?
On that side of the street, there's a stream, there's the McDonald's driveway, and then my driveway.
Got it.
I'm there. The McDonald property is kind of a flag lot behind my property.
I'll grant you parking spot. Okay, close. That's it, 10 o'clock. We're going to adjourn the meeting. Give me-
Jim, do you know what our agenda is looking like for the 17th?
I just took a look at that. There are two applications. I believe one is a pool for impervious surface. Another is an addition that's impervious surface and setback. We also have, I believe, the Jennings application is continued to that night. So I'm not sure how long that will take. So that's what we have.
It's less than what we had today.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little less than today.
Yeah.
I'd say we can make it the 17th. What do you think?
Sure.
Or maybe go half an hour later.
Make a motion to
Are you all right with the 17th? Okay.
Yep.
All right. so
Make a motion.
Motion to have it continue to the 17th.
Second.
Appeal number 21.
You have 8 on the call?
It's 10
It's
o'clock.
10 o'clock. We're,
Adjourning the meeting.
oh, thank you. Okay.
Motion to continue appeal number 21-1906 to August 17th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting continued at 8:17.
No, just adjourn. Just need to
Now we
adjourn.
have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, any discussion? No. All those in favor? Aye. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Come on back. Sorry.